So I've been making thumbnails for a while now, even before this channel's existence. And to be honest, I've never really thought about, the design too much, cause just make it attractive and simple and then people will click, right? But the more I actually examine thumbnails and looking at my favorite creators' thumbnails, I realized there's a little bit more to it than just, make some random thing and then slap random things together and then boom, you got a thumbnail. So for today's video, I have went out and done some investigating, collected some samples from some YouTubers, and we're gonna discuss on how and what makes a good YouTube thumbnail. So let's first talk about the elements that thumbnails are kind of made up with. These are the face, the subject, the background, and the text. Each of these elements serve a unique role in enhancing a thumbnail's appeal. So to get a better understanding of how they work together, let's talk about how each of them work one by one. Now the face, this is probably the most noticeable one because in most videos they kind of take up like half the screen and it's like the Mr. Beast reaction, the thing. But there's a little bit more to it than that. As I said, the face typically takes about to 1/3 or half of the screen. It represents the speaker in the video who is going to be talking and what avatar is going to be representing the speaker. For the direction of which the face typically faces, it's typically facing the side like this, like looking onto a distance slightly or looking down a little bit. Or it could be just front facing like what I'm doing right now. And this is actually kind of important because you have to decide which one you're going to use based on what your video is like. Now if your video is personal or like a kind of conversation like video, you're probably gonna want to look at the camera directly. But if the video is something that is outside of the realm of the video or YouTube and you're just talking about something else, you're probably gonna make like a reaction photo or something that you're looking at, even though you probably won't looking directly at it in accurate 3D. Well, let's talk about why the face is so important. So humans are really good at recognizing faces. We have like a whole part of our brain dedicated just for that. And just by like seeing a face, it kind of grabs people's attention. So that's why faces are such an important part of the thumbnail, because it's the part that your brain reacts the most to. And also, they can immediately tell you what the emotion of the video is like by, changing the face of the speaker. If the speaker looks sad, the video is probably going to be about a sad topic. If the speaker is really angry, the video might be about the speaker ranting about something they were really annoyed about. If the speaker is really happy, then the video has something good that happened. And in a sense, it can be the main attraction of the thumbnail if the person who's in the thumbnail is very attractive, not just physically, but in terms of how famous they are, I guess. So yeah, you kind of got that. And one thing I will say though, a lot of things that creators kind of do is they use the same picture or PNG of themselves reacting to the image. And honestly, I think this is a no-go. Please do not do this. As speaking from a viewer, it just makes your content kind of seem like cookie cutter factory without really any personality or uniqueness. And it is also kind of annoying because like once you start seeing the same face over and over in like 5 videos, you're kind of just like, bro, is it really that hard to make another thumbnail? So yeah, there's a lot of that with the face. Alright, so let's go to subjects. So the subject, this is what the video is about. Whoa, so revolutionary. Yes, the subject is either an object representing the idea talked about in the video, or it could just be an actual physical object that the video is about. This is typically next to the face and pretty large, almost as big as the face. But the subject can also just be, you know, the person itself, or it can be embedded into the background, or it could just be some block of text, you know, a phrase or a question that could be the subject. And I think the subject is just probably the most important, or in a sense, the most meaningful part of a thumbnail, because it actually differentiates what this video is about from like the other ones, because you all have the same kind of faces. But if you change your subject, then it's immediately a different kind of video. However, it can also be kind of small. It doesn't have to be that big. Like if you make a logo as a subject, it's probably not gonna be very large. And sometimes you just don't really have that much space to add like an extra object, because I don't know, maybe your background's really cluttered, or you put a ton of text, or your face is like the whole screen, you know. So yeah, that's about it for the subject. Let's go on to backgrounds. So the background mainly presents the overall mood and kind of atmosphere of the video. Generally, they're typically like patterns, or a texture, or like the topic itself, or a single color or a gradient, or even a scenery background kind of blurred out. And in general, you kind of want your background to be pretty simple and not really detract from the subject or the face in the thumbnail. You don't really want it to be the main focus. It's more of like a kind of support or foundation for what your thumbnail is made up of. And color is an important part of the background, because you can use different types of colors to evoke different types of moods and atmospheres and emotions. Like if you use really dark, cold colors, it might be a depressing video, or a video about something very negative. But if you use pastel, really nice soft colors, it could be a very comforting video. And if you use super bright colors that kind of hurt the eye, it kind of tells the viewer that this video is going to be super stimulating. You're really going to want to watch it. And also another thing, backgrounds can actually have another thing that most people don't really add. It's borders. So borders are a very interesting kind of thing. It can actually, in a sense, bring out depth by using like the lighting, and also put like a sort of contrast from like that video from the rest of them. Because by default, if you don't have borders, the borders of all your videos are just the round video icon that YouTube makes. But if you make a border, it kind of adds a little bit of that personality, or, you know, uniqueness of that sort of video topic or video. All right, so lastly, we have the longest one probably. This is text. As you probably may know, text is very important because it's very direct. It kind of just tells you what the video is about. It's typically the title, but like shortened or paraphrases, and it just makes it a lot easier to like see what the video is about without having to look down in the small text. And yeah, it's pretty important, but you ideally should make it very simple, like 3 words to 4 words, maximum 5 words, and you don't really want to use long, complicated words. Maybe sometimes you can make it like a short question, like, why is this? What is this? Or did you know this? Like something like that. In terms of positioning, the text is either next to the face, in the corner, on the top or bottom edges, and they can also be slanted. That is a very interesting thing, because if you slant your fonts, or if you slant your text, it kind of makes it feel like handwriting, because when you write, you have a natural slant, depending on if you're right-handed or left-handed, but you typically have a slant. So if you actually make your text sort of slanted, it kind of makes it feel more raw or personal, I guess. Another thing, a lot of text in videos kind of follow the same style. It's a white or red letters with a black background or shading, and is either like all caps and like shouting, or soft letters. It can also be just, you know, normal typing with like every word that's capitalized. But you do want to kind of think about what font you might want to choose. There's a lot of fonts, And if I'm gonna be honest, I do not know all of them. I don't even know that many off the top of my head. But there's pretty famous ones like Comic Sans, Serif, Arial. Actually, you probably don't want to use Arial, but it is there. Helvetica, maybe even New York Times. Probably not though, but you can also look at some other famous fonts that creators kind of use. Typically, round fonts kind of represent bubbliness or like a kind of friendliness, and that is actually more rare than the square ones, which are kind of like, oh my gosh, breaking news, or the situation is crazy, like that type of topics. Kind of fonts that you want to use when the topic is very, I guess, important, or you want to express the importance of it and, you know, how serious it is. It is actually quite interesting because a lot of these fonts are very non-mathematical or like measured. A lot of them are kind of like based off of handwriting itself and don't really have proportions that are purposefully engineered or designed, because that's mainly for academia. So a lot of those fonts are kind of made to have a certain personality, not just text. And there are people who design their own fonts or hire people that make fonts for them. And yeah, it's a very, very deep topic on itself, which I probably be able to make another video on. But I think that's it for fonts. Oh yeah, another thing, when you want to decide if the font is gonna be like next to the face, or if it's gonna be like in the corner, or if it's gonna be on the top or the bottom, well, when it's like really big and it's right next to you in like a block, it's typically representing the main topic of the video or the thing you want to emphasize the most, or like the quote you want to highlight from the video. And on the other hand, if you're putting text on the top or the bottom, you're probably gonna have a presentation kind of feel to it. Like you're putting a title, kind of a secondary title to it, and it kind of shows a viewer like the main idea of the video. Although even though if you put it right next to you, I said that it is created as a subject, but I think if you put it like on the top or bottom, it's more of like a removed feeling, like you're presenting on something but you're not really related to it. Well, if it's like right next to you and you're like looking at it, it's probably gonna be a more personal thing that you kind of have your own opinions on, rather than, you know, something that is happening in bottom text. So now that we have talked about all of the 4 different elements of the thumbnails, let's talk about how to actually, you know, make a thumbnail. So there's not really a one-fits-all solution for this, because different thumbnails should suit different types of videos, and not all videos are the same. So I generally categorize the different types of videos as number 1, vlog / raw content, reaction / commentary / educational content, gaming content, and clips or highlights. So each of these kind of have their own unique kind of style, I guess, that makes them work. Vlogs are typically not really actually designed thumbnails. They're just the default frame that YouTube chooses, or you just pick the frame out of the video to use, and it's kind of showing the viewer that, hey, this is raw, this is unedited, and it lets the viewer know what they're getting into. Reaction / commentary / educational content, on the other hand, this one typically has a pretty simple formula. It usually has the face, of course, the background, and the text. Sometimes you also have an object with 4 elements, but it's very common for there just be 3 of them: face, background, and text. And honestly, it kind of just works like that way if your text is your subject. But if your text is a subject, then you don't really necessarily need to put it, but you can put it if you really want the viewer to really know what the video is about immediately. And then gaming is also very broad genre too. Sometimes you have like raw gameplay, which you're probably just gonna pick a frame from the video, not really much. If you're doing like a let's play or a playthrough, you're probably gonna be like having a face that's reacting to something from the game that you found in this video. And you can also just use like the background and not have any text or object. Although I think text is pretty recommended for pretty much any thumbnail, but you can just, make it focused on more of the gameplay and then the speaker as a more removed perspective. And lastly, you have clips and highlights. Well, so these are pretty big. A lot of streamers get big because their clips get big on like YouTube, and they have typically a really similar style for all clips that it's kind of hard to recognize a certain personal style. It's typically with like the face of the person in the clip or multiple people in the clip kind of reacting to something, and it typically has like top and bottom text, either like a quote or like some flashy thing about the clip in like block letters with like white color and black outline or red. And the background is very frequently just kind of like a zoom in or a blur of the scenery of what the background of the clip is. And yeah, so to walk you through this, let's actually make a thumbnail together. Okay, so let's start by making a reaction or commentary style thumbnail, something that I kind of make. So the first thing of making a thumbnail is you're gonna have to, think about what the video is about, not just make it and then like have nothing related to the video. So let's remake a thumbnail of one of my videos. This one is kind of not really good in my opinion, looking back at it. So I think I might just remake this one. And all you kind of need to know is like the title of the video. So trouble with deciding which game to stream. Let's break down the options. Alright, so first things first, we're actually gonna make sure that our pixel setup is correct. I'm gonna be using Google Drawings because I don't have Photoshop, and most people probably have Google. So I'm gonna be using Google Drawings. What you're gonna do is you're gonna go to File and then go to Page Setup and then go to Custom and then go to this drop down with Pixels, and then you're just gonna type in 1280 to 7 by 720 because this is the max resolution thumbnails can be at. So we're gonna apply that, and now we have a nice kind of background. Now I'm gonna be using a very basic solid background for this tutorial, mainly because I just want to make it simple. And okay, so the title is Trouble Deciding Which Game to Stream. Let's think about what type of background you might want to have. Now trouble is a kind of negative thing, and it's like games. So I'm thinking maybe like a more darker color. Let's see. You know what? I'm gonna make it a dark blue. I don't really have that in a lot of my videos. Blue backgrounds. Well, actually, you know what? Let's change it. I'm gonna make it red just for the simplicity. A really dark red or purple, I guess. So we have the background. Boom. Already done. Now let's do the face. We're gonna think about what emotion this video conveys. We already talked about like having trouble and like kind of frustration. So what we can do is we can go either search up a picture or make the expression yourself. But since I have a convenient avatar, which I ripped off of Reimu in Toho, I can just search that up. And I could search up Reimu confused and then kind of go to images to find any images that might fit the kind of feeling that this video is trying to convey. And honestly, it kind of takes a while, but sometimes you can get lucky. Like this one is really good for this video because she's like kind of confused, or and also that comes with the quarry too. You might just want to add confused to it. And okay, so basically normally you would think you just copy and paste it like that, right? But that kind of makes it, you see this white stuff and you don't really want it. So what you can do here is actually go to image background remover on Google, and you can go to this website remove.bg, and basically just go to the image right click and then do copy image and then just Control V onto this website, or you could upload it, and then magically, whoa, it removes the background for you, and it's really nice. It's a very nice kind of life hack, I guess, because now you see I have a thumbnail, although it kind of has this. Actually, I think that's part of the art. But yeah, the background might not always work all the time because sometimes you have let's see if I can find an example that's hard to get a background. Like this, there's a lot of kind of stuff going on and you can't really tell like what to remove or who's you're gonna primarily focus on. So you're probably gonna wanna pick like a picture with a very clear defined focus and a contrast with the background. Alright, so when you got your picture, what you do want to do is make sure that your avatar is not like floating or cut up like on the bottom. Although actually you might just, it might just be a style preference, but in general you kind of want it to be, you know, not cut off and actually like exist. So yeah, that is, here is that thumbnail. Here's a face that we just made. And then now let's do the subject of the video. And for this one, we're just gonna think about what is the main topic of the video. So obviously this video is about gaming, which game. So what you could do is you could type in like game selection, and maybe there might be an image that kind of shows you like something like this or like that. This is actually really nice. In my original video, I kind of made it like a lot, but honestly, I think stuff like this might be better. Like maybe not too many images of games. Oh yeah, no, so this is kind of annoying. Sometimes you're just gonna have to go to the actual link because otherwise it's gonna be blurred. Let's see if I can find one. Oh, this is pretty nice. Okay, so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna grab my snipping tool. When you type in the Windows bar, you can get a snipping tool. And I'm gonna copy this picture. Actually, you know what? I can just copy it directly and then just remove the background, just like I did with the Reimu, because you can remove background on objects too. And now, whoa, we have a game catalog that we can kind of just slap on right now. And then you see there's just kind of extra random stuff, so you can just double click on the image and then crop it, so then it works. And enlarging. So already this is kind of like a complete thumbnail. There's one thing that I might wanna change, is that make sure the face, the whole avatar is completely filled up. So there's one last thing on this that you might wanna add, even though it might not be 100% necessary, but you can add text. And to do that on Google Drawing, you can go to Insert and then Word Art, and then you kind of type in what the word art's gonna be. So let's see. This video is about trouble deciding which game to stream. So I'm gonna make it which game. A very simple kind of thumbnail text that it's two words, but it already conveys, you know, what the video is about, because you have Reimu over here and she's like, I'm not sure which game to choose. And of course you're probably going to change the color of the text. It's typically white colored text, and then sometimes you can make it bold too, like this. And also if you want, you can make it all caps, although I would not make this one all caps because it's more like a quote, like an actual spoken thing. I'm not going to shout, which game? You know? And then lastly, we're going to pick a font. I typically go with Noto Sans JP. That's kind of my, I guess, brand font. But for this video, I think I'm going to use a different one. Let's see, Lexand. Ooh, that's pretty interesting. So we're gonna use this one, and then you see the border is kind of thin, so we might want to make the border kind of thick. And yeah, boom, we got a thumbnail. So in a sense, it's really not super difficult to do this. You just need to like sit down and actually do it. which is I guess the most annoying part, because you literally just made a whole video, scripted, edited, and then now you have to make another thing, a thumbnail, before you upload it. It can kind of be just annoying, but it's probably actually the most important part of your video, because it determines if the viewer is actually going to click on it or not. So let's go back to the cafe, shall we? Alright, so now that we've kind of talked about the more specific nitty-gritty, let's kind of wrap it all up and, you know, put some like concluding remarks on how to make a good thumbnail. So probably number one thing, even though it is kind of obvious, it is hard to do, is make your thumbnail very simple. You do not want to have a lot of objects or things. You kind of only want it to be like max 3 main focus things in your thumbnail, and if you have more than that, it's just a lot for the viewer and they might get overwhelmed. They just don't want to watch your video because it's too complicated for them. Another thing you might want to do is make a variety of thumbnails. A lot of creators kind of use their go-to template of, you know, the face, the same PNG face with the same style and like the same fonts and the same positioning. But if you really want to make your videos unique in the eyes of a viewer who might be looking at your channel and seeing like what stuff you got, and they see like a lot of this cookie cutter factory, you know, processed stuff, they might just feel annoyed. I personally just feel like, oh, come on, they didn't even take the time to put effort. It could have been so much better, you know? And since every video is kind of different, unless you make like one type of video and only one type of video that is all the same, but even then, you would still want to make your thumbnails unique, because each video kind of tells a different story, a different idea, with kind of different themes. And another really important thing you would probably want to think about is, does your thumbnail actually fit what the video is about? Because a lot of times people kind of make thumbnails and they have like nothing to do with the actual video. Clickbait, as we all know it, you know? But I think it's just a lot of people focus on the thumbnail itself, but they kind of forget that like the thumbnail is supposed to represent the contents of the video. And it's not just like a face, it is a face with intention that is kind of guided by what video you just made. And yeah, the one last thing I would probably say is, you know, look a lot at different creators in different styles of content and see how they kind of make their own thumbnails, you know. Why did they choose this color? Why did they choose this positioning? Why didn't they use text? Why is the text so big? Why couldn't they make it smaller? You know, you kind of want to ask these critical thinking questions to gauge a perspective for yourself when you're making your own thumbnails that you're gonna have to ask yourself, choices you're gonna make, you know? And yeah, that's pretty much it. Wow, this video is so long. I did not expect this video. I initially thought just wanted to make a basic tutorial, and then I just went down the whole rabbit hole of thumbnail design and cool nitty-gritty stuff. But, you know, I hope someone or anyone who might be interested in content creation can learn a little bit from this video, because technically I have been, as I said in the beginning, I have made a lot of thumbnails in the past on an old channel, but it is still thumbnails regardless. And I kind of do know what, you know, which thumbnails are very good or very attractive or just typically do well, you know, because a lot of viewers don't like watch the whole video, they just click and you get the view. But I think the retention rates, you kind of have to balance between retention and attraction, because obviously you want the people to click on your video, but you don't want them to just immediately click off because the video is absolutely nothing what the thumbnail was about. So you do have to consider both kind of sides, but you definitely do want to not neglect either one. And yeah, that's about it for thumbnails. I think I might make a little bit more videos on kind of content creation and the kind of tools you can use or the techniques that you can apply to make more well-designed content that, you know, people might enjoy. And I hope this video is at least one step towards that intention. And yeah, thank you for watching another Kiyo video.